This is Modern Mindset, the show where we discuss the psychology and emotion of finance and business. My name's Adam Cox, and joining me today is Alexandra Badita, who is an author and a bit of an expert about how writing can actually change your emotional state and actually move you in the direction that you want to. So welcome to the show, Alexandra.
Hi, Adam. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
So Alexandra, or Alex for short, give me a bit of a background as to how you became an author specializing in quite a unique field.
Absolutely. So my background is in journalism. I studied journalism and advertising, and then I started blogging because writing has always been my passion. And even though I went in a different direction with my career in digital marketing and project management, I kind of had this need to write all the time. So I used blogging for this. And my blog started like 4 years ago. It was fashion, lifestyle, dating. It's actually very funny when I look back at it and I see how it has grown and how it has evolved over time. And then I realized when I went through a breakdown and I had to go into therapy that writing can do much more than just being a hobby. So it was actually my therapist who was recommending me some writing exercises. And that's how I realized that writing is so powerful. And that's how I started getting over what was going on. And I started rediscovering myself. And I figured this is something that I really need to share with more people because it's so accessible and it's such an easy tool to use. So I really want people to get a little bit of a taste and just give it a try.
Most people, when they go to therapy, they talk and they listen. They don't normally write. So tell us this concept of writing therapy. You know, what is it and how does it work?
So it's, of course, a lot of people go to talk to therapists, but some people are not so comfortable talking. And then you can use writing, which is a little bit more personal. And that's how my therapist discovered that it could help me a lot more. And writing is actually a way that we translate our thoughts and feelings onto paper. And then it can become so personal. And there's this quote from Anne Frank, "Paper has patience." So basically when we write, there is no judgment and there is absolutely no problem from anyone. We're not expecting anything. We're just getting it all out on paper. So that's why I think writing as a therapy is so much more powerful sometimes, especially for people who don't feel very comfortable in sharing by talking. And I really encourage people, even when I hear them that they're a little bit reluctant. I've had so many people in my workshops coming in and saying, "Oh, what do I do with this piece of paper?" And then it's just a matter of easing them into just grabbing the pen and writing. And it's just this free form of writing that starts flowing. And with just a little bit of exercise, then it creates magic.
So give us a bit more insight in terms of how it works. Do we literally just write whatever's in our head, or are we answering questions? You know, is there a purpose or an outcome to the writing, or is it just kind of write whatever you want?
So there are more ways in which to approach writing as therapy, of course. For people who are comfortable with it, it can be free form, just pouring it all out. Anything that's thoughts, feelings, emotions, some situations that were bothering us, maybe something that got us angry. And it's a matter of just getting it all out on paper. There are times when we just pile up everything inside of us and we just get to that point where we need to get it out. So that's when we find it easier to write. Of course, there are a lot of exercises, there are writing prompts, and in my book, I give a lot of tools in terms of how people can start writing and a little exercises that anyone can use to just give it a try. And of course, it depends on the purpose of writing, just as you mentioned as well, because writing can be used for healing. Writing can be used for a daily practice of well-being. It can be used as gratitude exercise. It can be used as journaling. There are so many types of writing. And it's just a matter of what we intend to do with that writing exercise and where we're at in our lives.
And is it something you need to do on a regular basis? Because I've had a journal for years, and sometimes I will literally do it every single day, and then there's periods it will 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks will go, and I haven't done anything, and then suddenly I just feel this need to kind of get it out of my head, kind of onto the journal. Does it matter, or is it more kind of responding to what your body's telling you?
Absolutely. I think the way that you're doing it is the perfect way, because when you have to do it, when it's something that you have to do every single day and you just have it as a task on your to-do list, it's not working anymore. It can get to be a burden for you, and it's just something that, oh, I have to write again, and you don't feel like it. So it's a lot better to just allow yourself to do the writing part whenever it feels like you need to do it, whenever you feel that, oh, I really would love to grab that pen and write something right now, because that's when it matters most. That's when we're the most honest, and that's when we get to get out all of those emotions on paper. Otherwise, it can be, of course, a very good exercise for a daily practice. For instance, I write daily my gratitude list, and it's something that is part of my morning routine. But then again, people respond differently to different ways of writing, and my advice is always just give it a try and see what works for you. It's not a recipe, it's not something that has to be done. It's a matter of just doing how it feels and when it feels the most appropriate.
Okay, so see how you feel and then kind of use it in that way. And you've mentioned paper and pens and things like that. Now, I'll be honest, when I write, it's never, with a pen. I used to have, kind of fountain pens and this kind of stuff. But now if I do it, I use digital kind of things. I'll use kind of apps and things like that. Does it really matter how you do the writing, or is it more important that you actually are doing the writing?
Of course, it doesn't matter in terms of doing the exercise of getting it all out. What I find is that handwriting has a much more powerful relationship when it comes to easing the thoughts on paper. And I also explain that in my book because I love handwriting, and I really think that people should give it a try again. And writing is not dead. So absolutely, if you're happy to do it on a laptop or on your smartphone, it's perfectly fine, especially when you're in a rush and you have so many thoughts going on and you want to do it in a faster way. But what I find in handwriting is that it's a little bit more structured, and then it takes more time to organize your thoughts and to write them down. And then by the simple movement of your hand, sometimes it gives you that feeling that you are focused. And it's also a mindfulness strategy, because you are there, you're in that moment. You are not doing something else on your laptop or listening to music or thinking about your emails. You are just there with your piece of paper and the pen, and you just write it, and you're focused on that activity itself. And yes, I agree. I also type a lot of the times when I have so many things going on and I want it to be faster. But whenever I feel that I want to be closer, and I think it's also, that matter of privacy. You think that if I write it, then you can burn that paper, you can rip it off. It's so much more therapeutic. It can be a ritual that you can do in terms of releasing some emotions, some anger, and you just rip it off and throw away the paper. It gives you a much better feeling than just deleting the file on the computer.
I get it. It's more symbolic and kind of physical. What kind of things do you think that writing therapy can help with? Is it serious things? Can it help with things like, trauma, stress, bereavement? What kind of things can writing really help with?
Absolutely. It can help with the process of grief. It's so important to just get a piece of paper, for instance, when you lose someone dear in your life, and just write stuff that maybe you didn't have the chance to tell them. Write a letter to them. It's also the symbolic fact of writing. It can be very powerful because it releases all those emotions that are otherwise piling up. And it can help in terms of releasing trauma by the fact that you can just write about what happened, or write and confront the person who did something wrong to you. Or it can be just a matter of writing about daily things that are bothering you. So it can go from, the process of healing serious problems, and it also has a very benefic part in your physical health. There have been studies that writing is a very good stress relief, and it improves health. It's actually James Pennebaker, who is the father of the modern writing therapy, who talks about this in his studies and in his research. And he has found that people who write, even groups of people who have been hospitalized and they have gone through surgery or some different procedures, if they write, they will heal faster, because instead of just thinking about that pain or just keeping it inside, they release it, and then they can just write about all sorts of things, but it's a matter of just getting it all out, and it improves health. And for me, that was very interesting to find out, because it's not just an emotional release, it's also something that helps physically, and it also decreases the number of times that you have to go to the doctor. That's also a research. And it was very, very interesting to find that out. So it's really powerful, and that's why writing can heal. And then once you heal, of course, if it doesn't feel right for you, maybe you want to drop it. But I think that once you get into it and you know its power, you wouldn't want to give it up, and you will continue it as a practice for well-being and for being grateful, or writing a letter, or just talking either to yourself or with someone else in writing, and just confronting all those emotions that are going on.
So it's a cathartic experience to kind of if you've been wronged, or if something's happened, if you've gone through something, to not just keep it to yourself. And sometimes people don't necessarily have people to talk to, so the writing becomes a way of almost like, as you say, getting it out. Is it, when you talk about healing, are we just talking about emotional healing? Are we talking about that kind of sense of well-being, or is it something, I mean, you mentioned the doctor, does it actually have a psychosomatic physical connection between how you're feeling and what you're experiencing inside?
Yes, absolutely. It has a very strong connection, because when we start writing, we get out of our heads all that stress. For instance, let's assume that we get angry at someone that does something to us during the day, and then we go in the evening and we write it down, in the sense of, this is how I felt, this is how it made me feel, this is what I wish I could have told that person. And at the end of the day, you just don't have that amount of stress, you don't feel that ache and that pain, and you don't feel that there's something on your heart hanging in there. You just let it all out. And this process of releasing then has the effect of decreasing your need to visit a doctor, your blood pressure decreases, and it's so much more important when you realize that, if I do this, then it will just make me healthier. So yes, absolutely, it has a very powerful connection with our health, with our physical health. And from an emotional point of view, it's a strong connection between identifying our feelings and our thoughts, And this way we know what's going on, because most of the times it's just a lot of chatter in our head. So we sometimes just don't know what's going on. And by writing it down, it helps us see it more clearly. And somehow we just see both sides, and we kind of understand, oh, where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? What is actually my point of view? So it just gives you a bit of a structure. It gives you this release of emotions. And at the same time, you can even just write a list of pros and cons, for instance, when you need to make a decision. And it's also coming from inside of you, and you can analyze the emotions that are related to both taking one decision or the other. So it has so many benefits. And
well, you're clearly a very passionate advocate,
Yes.
for this process. The cynic may say, "Come on, it's just writing. It's just writing." And actually, if people focus too much on their problems, maybe that can actually be disempowering in some way. So, because the mental health industry, the pharmaceutical industry dealing with things like depression and anxiety and stress, the cynic on the side listening may say, "Come on, Alex, can writing really help with these kind of stuff?"
yes, it can. It can, because it has, indeed, you are facing whatever is bothering you. But at the same time, by facing it, then it's no longer buried inside of you. And the way that I've also heard people telling me, oh, but if I write about something that has happened to me in the past, doesn't it mean that I'm living in the past? And yes, it means that you're revisiting that situation. But when you write about it, you're facing it, you're going back there. I'm not saying it's easy. It's going to be a little bit painful. But once you go there, you write about it, you let it go, you make a choice to let it go, to forgive yourself, to forgive whoever did you wrong. And instead of just keeping it inside of you, because it's just buried there and it can come to surface when you least expect it, then you just face it, you bring it to surface voluntarily, you face it, and you say, I let it go.
So it sounds like the writing part is one part of a therapeutic process. So you wouldn't recommend for people just to start writing. You would say, well, look, do it in a way which is deliberately designed to make you feel better.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's say that, and your book, Write Your Way to Happiness, is obviously a very good guide that I believe people can find on the likes of Amazon and, the like. Let's say that people very busy, they don't have time to read your book, and they just want the basics of writing in a way that's going to make them feel better. Where would they even start? And I'm assuming you'd recommend that they start with something maybe small rather than the biggest, most traumatic experience they've ever had. Give us some tips about how to actually write our way to happiness.
You can start from the back of the book, where there are some exercises that I have especially put there for people who want to just give writing a try. And just start with writing about what your day was like. Start with something small, or start with writing a shopping list. And when you go to the supermarket, just see how it feels. You pull out the shopping list, you look at it, and then you go back and you start checking off things from your list. And it gives you that feeling that you have accomplished something. So it's also something good. Or as I said, the gratitude exercise is, I think, also something really easy. Sometimes
Tell us
it
about
can be
that,
difficult.
because I've heard, I think, Oprah Winfrey several years ago just saying, at the end of the day, write a few things that you're grateful for. Is there a science to that? Why does that work? And how, is there a time of the day to do it? Why does it work?
I don't think there's a specific time of the day. You can choose to do it whenever it feels better for you. Of course, some people do it in the evening at the end of the day and think about what they are grateful for during that specific day. I prefer to do it in the morning because it sets me for a good day and it just brings my energy level up. and I just feel grateful, and I just take that feeling of gratitude with me during the whole day. It's absolutely, there have been studies that feeling grateful and doing this gratitude exercise and practice makes you feel a lot better, because you know what they say, every cloud has a silver lining. So if you choose to look at the silver lining, then it's easier to go through a difficult situation. It's easier to face obstacles if you think of them as lessons, if you see the positive side of them. And that's why I think that we need to be grateful even when some negative situations come up in our lives, and we need to find that gratitude in ourselves. And yes, it's not easy, but it's something that will completely change the way we look at things and at our lives.
Because I mean, there's different theories about you get more of what you focus on. So if you focus on gratitude, you're going to have more to be grateful for, and you're going to feel better. The law of attraction says that what we kind of focus on and it will manifest. Can, you know, with a show that is broadcast to a lot of business owners, a lot of people that are into their personal finance, can we write about things that we want? And by writing, is that going to help to manifest more of what we want in our lives?
Sure, because when you write it down and you see it, you can use it as practice for affirmations, for instance. You can write down some affirmations with what you want to achieve. For instance, I keep a Post-it with my favorite affirmation on my mirror, and it says, I am love. And that reminds me every single day that it's love that I'm holding inside of me, and I am love, and I don't need to look for love in somebody else or in something else. And just doing this writing, for instance, in terms of business goals, objectives, any type of goal setting, if it goes into writing, then it gets a lot more power, and it also keeps you accountable, because you already made that commitment, even if it's just to that piece of paper. But it's not just, oh, I'm thinking about achieving X amount of money. You wrote it on paper, you're seeing it, and it keeps you accountable as well.
Okay. What would you say, and you don't have to share anything too personal, but can you give us an example from your life about a time when this writing therapy made a difference that perhaps we can relate to?
I would say that in all my breakups, I used writing. And that's why I think it's so powerful. When I went through a toxic relationship and I found myself at the end of it, like I wasn't myself anymore, I wanted to write about it. But the funny thing was that although I knew that writing was going to help me, it was the first time when I couldn't write. So whenever I would sit down in front of my laptop or just grab a piece of paper and pen to write, I just couldn't face the fact that I allowed myself to get into that relationship. I was ashamed. And it did take me a while to get used to this feeling and to break through in order to start writing. And it was the first time when I took a break from writing. But after every breakup, I used writing, and it always helped me because it made more sense to me. And sometimes I even used writing to share the way that I felt. And I know this is something very controversial, and every time I mention it is something that people are a little bit like, but why share it? But personally, I think that sometimes it can be useful, not in the sense that I'm trying to teach the other person a lesson, but I'm just showing my side of story that maybe I didn't get a chance to share. Maybe it was an argument, or I just didn't feel right at that point, and I just decided to put it in writing and then later on share it with that person the way that they made me feel or how they heard me, and they choose whether they take anything from it or not.
Okay. So Taylor Swift, who tends to write a lot of songs about her breakups, that's just therapy, really.
Exactly. Yeah. I was actually joking back when I was blogging about dating that if I was able to sing, I would be Taylor Swift of Romania.
Fair enough. Because I think it's relatable content. You know, everyone's kind of had, you know, that very kind of emotional experience of a breakup. The title, Write Your Way to Happiness, may seem almost like too unbelievable. You know, there might be people that are depressed or know people that are depressed. Can writing help with something really serious like that? You know, or is it more for people that are, you know, fairly, you know, occasionally sad, occasionally upset? Is it more for that, or can it really help with, you know, quite serious mental conditions?
I am very sure that it can help with depression and anxiety, and knowing from my experience when I was in therapy that it really made a difference for me. I know that it helps. Of course, it goes hand in hand with specialized help and maybe sometimes even treatment, and that's absolutely complementary. And it can definitely make a difference and change the way that people look at their thoughts, because it's all about our negative thinking, it's our self-talk, and it's about seeing what helps us. Of course, there will be people who might find it daunting and they may just say, I'm not going to write, or they try it and they say, this is not for me, and that's absolutely fine. Just like any other type of therapy or alternative ways of healing, it's something that you have to be sure that it's for you and that you feel comfortable to do it. There are all sorts of art therapies, and there is so much more that you can do if you don't think writing is for you. So absolutely, it can help in serious conditions, and it can be maybe just another tool. It can be a secondary tool in some cases, but it is definitely something that is worth trying.
Thank you so much. And tell us where we can find your book.
My book is available on Amazon and also on my website, writeyourwaytohappiness.com and impressivity.net.
Alex, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to you at home, thanks for joining me on Modern Mindset in association with Share Radio. Join me again next week for more.